No man is an island, is what they say. Therefore, we humans communicate as the time goes by. Along with our socialization, there's this impact, a change in the character, on beliefs, behavior, etc. And it could be either in a positive or negative ways. And this effect may be indirect or intangible. Good day, everyone. I am encouraging you all to please listen and comprehend our discussion as we're going to delve deep about this effect that I'm referring to. Understanding the juries. That effect that I'm talking about is what we usually know as the influence. It is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something, or the effect itself. This social influence has been defined as the process wherein one person's attitudes, cognitions, or behaviors are changed through the doings of another. It was defined by Cialdini and Kriskevicius in year 2010. It has been said that it is a process by which individuals adapt their opinion, revise their beliefs, or change their behaviors as a result of social interactions with other people.
Can I buy one of those? Yeah, you know what? Actually, this. Okay. What's so funny over here?
I thought you didn't smoke.
Oh, I thought you guys meant marijuana cigarettes. You know what I mean? Like doobies. And I thought to myself, wow, those guys are crazy. But no, I smoke the regular ones all the time. We get high. Me too.
I'm kidding.
Oh, me too.
So, what have you observed on the video? As we have seen, there were a lot of girls who were smoking, and that one particular girl, even though she don't smoke, tend to change her behavior and adopt her surroundings. That example clearly shows us one of the causes of the influence, which is the majority influence, the power of many. So, what prompted that particular girl to smoke? Yes, it is because of the social pressure. So, this majority influence is a social pressure exerted by the larger portion of a group, the majority, directed toward individual members and smaller factions within the group, which is the minority. It occurs when the beliefs held by the larger number of individuals in the current social group prevail, and this change of one's attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors to match or imitate those of real or imagined others is what we call as conformity. Note that conformity is also known as the majority influence. Solomon Asch was one of the pioneers of social psychology. He wanted to investigate whether people would conform or change their perceptions, their perspectives to the majority in situations where an answer was obvious. His experiment is called the Asch situation. In this study, there were 5 to 7 participants per group. Each group was presented with a standard line and 3 comparison lines. Participants had to say aloud which comparison line matched the standard line in length. In each group, there was only one real participant. The remaining 6 were Confederates, his associate or accomplice. The Confederates were told to give the incorrect answer on 12 out of 18 trails. The experiments revealed that the degree to which a person's own opinions are influenced by those of a group. Asch found that the people were willing to ignore reality and give an incorrect answer in order to conform to the rest of the group. And why do people conform? People conform to group pressure, as what I've said earlier, because they are dependent on the group for satisfying two important desires, which are the desire to have an accurate perception of reality and the desire to be accepted by other people. And when do people conform? Sometimes the situation in which we are also define how much we conform. Three main factors in these are group size, group unanimity, and our commitment to the group. Let's talk about first the group size. Conformity increases as the size of the majority increases. Example, if majority of people in a group feel the weather to be warm, the opinion of the people changes even it's comparatively cold. Second, group unanimity. A person faces tremendous pressure to conform to the group idea if it's unanimous. Unanimous meaning having an agreement and consent of all. Even if one person doesn't conform, the opinion drops about one fourth, and it does not even matter who the non conforming person is. Lastly, our commitment to the group. Conformity is also affected by the bonds between each individual and the group. Commitment refers to all the forces that act to keep an individual in a relation or a group. Positive factors include liking other group members, believing that the group accomplishes important goals, feeling that the group members work well together, and expecting to gain from belonging to the group. To who will conform? Conformity varies across group, strong and weak situations, the sexes, across time, and across cultures. First, conformity across people. People who conform consistently in groups tend to be more authoritarian, meaning people who are favoring or enforcing strict obedience to authority but seek social approval. Nonconformists are said to be more self confident. Next, conformity across the sexes. Women conform slightly more than men, primarily in face to face groups. Women may conform to increase group harmony, whereas men dissent to demonstrate their independence. And lastly, conformity across cultures and eras. Bond and Smith, in year 1996, review suggests that group members in collectivistic societies yield to majority influence more often than those in individualistic societies. People's responses to others' influence take many forms. Compare them by imagining you and a group of your friends are ordering a pizza, and the majority of the members quickly state in unison, "We must have pepperoni in our pizza." Will you agree with them or will you resist? Your response can be called many names, depending on your public statements on the pepperoni issue and your private opinions before and after the deliberation. So, now let's talk about the types of conformity. So, first, let's gain knowledge about compliance. As one of the types of conformity, it is when the members privately disagree with the group, but they publicly express an opinion that matches the opinion expressed by the majority of the group. So, with the situation given earlier, the example would like be you dislike pepperoni but go along with the group, and after dinner, you say that the pepperoni was good, but privately you still dislike pepperoni. Next step is the conversion or private acceptance. It is when the members change their position on the issue because they think the group is correct and they personally accept the group's position as their own. It is a genuine acceptance. So, our example for this with a given situation is you dislike pepperoni, but don't say anything with the group orders. The pizza is great and you change your mind about the pepperoni. And then the next time you order a pizza and you add a pepperoni. The last type of conformity is the congruence or uniformity. It is when the members agree with the group from the outset, so they are not responding to the group's influence when they express their position publicly. People tend to change public views to match those of a group, but the reason why they are doing it is because they really value the group and wished to be part of it and identify with it. Our example for this is that you like pepperoni, so you speak up in favor of getting pepperoni when the group discusses its order. Since we have types of conformity, we also have here the types of nonconformity, which is the failure or refusal to conform to a prevailing rule or practice. The first type of nonconformity is the independence or dissent. It is when the members disagree by publicly expressing ideas, beliefs, and judgments that are consistent with their personal standards. They stick with their own idea, beliefs, and not easily persuaded. So, our example for this with a given situation before is that you dislike pepperoni and try to talk to the group about putting pepperoni on only half. And then they refuse. Then you pick the pepperoni off your slices while frowning. Anticonformity or counterconformity, it is when the members who display anticonformity express ideas or take actions that are the opposite of whatever the group favors. So, example of this is that you don't really care about pepperoni, but you like being a rebel, so you argue with a vegetarian white pizza instead. The last type of nonconformity is the strategic anticonformity or the devil's advocate. It is when the members take a position that opposes that endorsed by the majority of the members publicly, even though privately they agree with the majority. So, our example for this, you like pepperoni, but you think the group should consider other alternatives. So you deliberately argue for other toppings, but you're fine with the group gets a pepperoni pizza.
9, 10, 11. Okay, that's 11 guilty. Was voting not guilty? 1. Right. 11 guilty, 1 not guilty. Well, now we know where we are.
Boy, oh boy, there's always one.
So, what are we doing now?
I guess we talk.
So we are here now with another cause of social influence, which is the minority influence, the power of the few. Question is, when do people resist the group's influence and instead change the group? The social pressure in the minority influence is exerted by a lone individual or smaller faction of group directed toward members of the majority. So, as what we have seen in the video was an excerpt of the 12 Angry Men. There's this one juror that was the juror number 8 who voted for not guilty and the rest was guilty. He explained the source of his doubts, suggests alternative interpretation of the evidence, and questions the accuracy of some of the witnesses. The jurors became uncertain. They voted again and again, and with each vote, the numbers favoring guilt and innocence shifted from 11 against 1 to 10 against 2 to 9 against 3 until in time the tables turned. Juror number 3, who was so sure that the son was guilty, finds that he is now the lone holdout. The group then pressured him to change, and angrily he admits he was wrong, and the shift of opinion is complete. The jury's verdict is now not guilty. With that being said, Moscovici in year 1976 in his conversion theory suggests that consistent minorities will be influential, but that influence in some cases is indirect and delayed. Minorities promote conversion and innovation, whereas majorities promote compliance. Layton, in year 1997, with his dynamic social impact theory, uses the processes of consolidation, clustering, correlation, and continuing diversity to explain majority and minority influence in spatially distributed groups that interact repeatedly over time, such as cluster groups. We are down on our fourth topic, which is the sources of group influence. There are four psychological and interpersonal sources of majority and minority social influence in groups, and these are implicit influence, informational influence, normative influence, and interpersonal influence. As you watch a tour group moving across a college campus, a queue moving gradually forward toward a ticket window, or even a jury deliberating, the individual group members likely believe that they are carefully processing information before making one deliberate choice after another. But at a level outside of their awareness, they are responding cognitively, emotionally, and behaviorally to the people around them. Because of implicit influence, the tour group spontaneously forms a semicircle to listen to the guide. The queue members maintain a set distance between each other, and the jurors speak in the same tones and cadence as each other, all without any conscious awareness. Mimicry and mindlessness are under implicit influence. In mimicry, people often deliberately imitate each other, but mimicry involves an unconscious copying of the behavior others are exhibiting, while mindlessness is a state of reduced cognitive processing characterized by actions based on habit, routine, or previously formed discriminations rather than conscious deliberation. The informational influence. It takes place whenever group members use others' responses as reference points and informational resources. In the excerpt of video of the 12 Angry Men, there's this one jury changed his verdict from guilty to not guilty, but he did not mindlessly go along. Rather, when this juror learned that juror number 8 had a reasonable doubt, he wondered, why did juror number 8 draw different conclusions about the case than I did? And am I correct in my interpretation of the evidence? His reaction clearly illustrates the informational influence. It is the acceptance of information obtained from another as evidence about reality. Moreover, we have normative influence. Normative influence prompts group members to feel, think, and act in ways that are consistent with their group's social standards. It is where a person conforms to fit in the group because they don't want to appear foolish or to be left out. Normative social influence is usually associated with compliance, where a person changes their public behavior but not their private beliefs. For example, a person may feel pressurized to smoke because the rest of their friends are. Normative social influence tends to lead to compliance because the person smoked just for show, but deep down they wish not to smoke. This means any change of behavior is temporary. We also have interpersonal influence. This includes verbal and nonverbal tactics such as complaining, demanding, threatening, pressuring, and shouting, designed to induce change. In the 12 Angry Men jury, the men did not dispassionately discuss their perceptions of the evidence calmly and carefully. Instead, they complained, demanded, threatened, pleaded, negotiated, pressured, manipulated, insulted, and shouted, even threatening one another with physical harm, in an attempt to change one another's opinion so that the group could reach a unanimous decision. When a group discovered nonconformists, they sometimes use interpersonal pressure to force the member to conform or to change his perception or belief. We have here the bystander effect. It is the tendency for people to help less when they know others are present and capable of helping. But why do people in groups not help as much as single individuals? First, emergency situations are usually unfamiliar ones. So people who witness them do not fully understand what is happening and how they should respond. It causes them to rely on the reactions of others in the situations to guide their interpretation of the event. And People feel less responsible when in groups compared to being alone, and this diffusion of responsibility leaves bystanders feeling that it is not their responsibility to help. Now we are in the last main point of our lesson, which is the application or understudying juries. Question is, does social influence shape juries' verdicts? First thing, juries are responsible for weighing the testimony of each person before rendering a verdict. The magnitude of social influence suggests that decisions reached by groups, including juries, are shaped by social process rather than by an unbiased weighing of evidence. Here are some of the social influence that shape the jury's verdicts or their decision. We have here the story model, the Chicago Jury Project, and work by Hasty Penrod and Pennington in year 1983 suggests that jurors, through deliberation, develop narratives to account for evidence. This story model is a theory of cognitive processing of trial information that suggests jurors mentally organize evidence in coherent and credible narratives. Some jurors appear to be verdict driven. It means they reach a decision about the verdict before deliberation and cognitively organize the evidence into two categories: evidence that favors a verdict of guilty and evidence that favors a verdict of non-guilty. While evidence-driven jurors, in contrast, resist making a final decision on the verdict until they have reviewed all the available evidence. Then they generate a story that weaves together the evidence of the trial and their own expectations and assumptions about people and similar situations in a coherent narrative. And how do we improve juries? The judicial system is long on tradition, but in recent years, several innovations have been suggested and even implemented. Some of these reforms, such as reducing the size and the decision rules of juries, are designed to improve the general efficiency of juries and the fairness of their procedures. Others, such as note-taking, help jurors to process the evidence and testimony that they must consider when reaching their decision. First is the jury size. Ruling a six-person jury is large enough to promote group deliberation, protect members from intimidation, fairly represent the community, and weigh the facts in the case. Jury experts, however, have suggested that the Supreme Court should have taken group dynamics research into consideration before making its decision. Modifying jury size or changing jury size could influence to these following: group structure, representativeness, majority influence, voting, and verdicts. Next is the procedural innovations. Several alterations of procedure have been developed to help jurors remember and process trial information. Some courts also permit jurors to, first, take notes during the presentation of evidence and use these notes during deliberation. Also, to submit questions to the court that, after review by judge and legal counsel, can be considered in summary statements during the trial or in the presentation of additional evidence, and discuss the trial among themselves while the trial is ongoing.